Hi, and welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, today on the show, we're going to have a special interview with Steve Stetler, the new head of the Pennsylvania Economy League. But before that, we're here for our regular monthly financial literacy update. We'll do that after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, as everybody knows or should know, the Pennsylvania Economy League is one of the premier organizations in the state that promotes efficiency in economy and government. They particularly work on improving the structures of government and making governmental life more efficient. We're going to chat with Steve Stetler, who's a state legislator, was a state legislator. He's now the head of the PA Economy League. We'll chat with him. But before then, our popular financial literacy update, and as often is the case, I am joined by Michael Wishnow, who's a senior vice president of the Credit Union Association of Pennsylvania, and Joseph Wambach, who is the executive director of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Foundation. Guys, that's a mouthful, but I got it out. As always, great guests. You're always welcome. All right, let's go, Mike. I'm going to start with you, and we're going to go through this bit again. Every now and then, we'd like to remind our viewers about how important financial education is. So let's start with that.
Oh, absolutely, Terry. It is critically important for our kids, for our older parents and grandparents. Today, there are so many more financial alternatives available in the marketplace that consumers need to be more savvy than ever. And so our foundation is very actively engaged in trying to promote financial education in schools and workplaces and among community groups.
So, Joe, let me make sure I understand this. The Credit Union Foundation is separate from the Credit Union Association. It's an independently run operation. And what is the primary purpose of the foundation?
Well, the primary purpose of the foundation, of course, is to serve the philanthropic needs of the credit unions throughout Pennsylvania. And I should let you know that we are an affiliate of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Right. And, in fact, we are administered by both the association and the foundation. Okay.
So you have some people in the governance of both.
That is correct,
which is
yes.
pretty typical, I think, of these kinds of organizations. Well, let me... Mike, let's go back to some of the specifics of this, and I want to talk first about the financial products used by young people in particular. Young people now get bombarded. As soon as they're in high school, they start to get all of this information about credit cards, about opening up a savings account, about doing car insurance. I mean, this can be pretty overwhelming, whether you're a kid in getting out of high school or going into the job market itself, or maybe going on to college. What can you say about the financial products that are used by students, and how important is this?
Well, financial products and services are critically important to all of us, and with the younger folks, particularly kids at high school age and going into college, more and more is being done electronically, Terry. Mm-hmm. So there are some protections that those kids need to know when they use their debit card, when they use their credit card, when they do transactions over the internet, that they need to know at an earlier age.
Yeah, and I'm looking here at some of the statistics. 80% of college students have checking accounts, 62% have an ATM card, 65% have a savings account in their own name, 32% car insurance, 52% general credit card use, and 39%, oh, this is a good one, carry over credit balances from month to month. So, Joe, I mean, what is it that we need to do, I think, much better than we're doing now, about how young people in particular can avail themselves of some expertise to know what to do about this?
Well, the Pennsylvania Credit Union Foundation, Terry, is involved with the credit unions in a partnership between credit unions and schools, credit unions in the workplace, and credit unions in community centers. And what we need to do is to make sure that classroom education in all three of those sectors is persistently accomplished, that it be accomplished as often as possible, so when the clients or the students leave the school or the community center or the business, that they have the skills necessary to be able to make the appropriate financial decisions within all these areas.
Now, Michael, is this something you think, I mean, should it be done formally in the curriculum? educators are kind of reluctant, I think you know this, to say, oh, here's something else we got to teach.
Absolutely. I mean, educators have it tough, Terry. There's a lot of pressure on them to teach PSSAT tests and to teach, No Child Left Behind and everything else. What we have done with the Credit Union Foundation is put together programs that can be intertwined into the existing curriculum, so that if a math teacher's teaching math, they do it in a personal finance context.
Oh, I got it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk with my guests about a couple of these specific programs that may work to help educate young people about pocketbook issues, something we all care about. Back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers with Mike Wishnow and Joe Wambach. We're talking about financial literacy. In particular, we're chatting about some programs that young folks can get involved with that will help them understand the risks involved in all of the credit that they now undertake, and literally some pretty big decisions that folks make about how they're going to handle money matters. Joe, let me start with you. Give me some examples of some good programs that work for our viewers.
Well, I think the most exciting example that we are involved in now as a foundation is a program, a credit union consortium, Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Right.
And what we're doing, Terry, is we are introducing financial literacy to Hispanic groups within a 4-county area, and we have approximately 40,000 Hispanics in those areas who are listening to these programs. The program's called You and Your Money.
Yeah.
That's a very exciting program also because we are attempting to try to recruit these people into the credit union movement so that we can teach and train them about how to better manage their money as follow-ups to that program.
Now, Michael, in addition to that, you have partnerships with school districts that, just to piggyback what Joe just said, that are relevant here as well.
Oh, yeah, we have lots of partnerships. In fact, there are about 200 school districts that are working in some way, shape, or form out of Pennsylvania's 500 with a credit union partner to deliver financial education. In 10 of those schools, we actually have in-school branches where the kids can come into the school branch and use that as a laboratory for what they're learning in the classroom. Really exciting stuff.
But I notice you work with Junior Achievement, you work with Biz Kids, you name it. So the point is flexibility in terms of the community organizations that are willing to work with you and willing to invest some of their own time and energy into it?
Yeah, and flexibility with respect to curriculum. The foundation, as Joe will tell you, really doesn't choose any one particular curriculum.
Right.
Whatever works at the local level
right.
to get the information taught to the kids or to the workers, that's what's important, right, Joe?
That's correct, Terry. There's tons of information out there. The problem seems to be the inability to present the information to these students. And as Mike mentioned, we work with probably close to 100,000 students in making sure that they receive the requisite education during the course of the school year. That's a very important component, I think, and significant.
All right. As always, guys, great update. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll see you in a month or so. All right, when we come back, my special interview with Steve Stetler, the new head of the Pennsylvania Economy League. We're going to talk about the Economy League and what its goals and objectives are for the 2007 calendar year. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the show. Joining me now is Steve Stetler, who is the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Economy League, the Capital Division. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Steve spent many years, almost 2 decades in the Pennsylvania House, correct?
16 years.
16 years, almost 2 decades. You know, you've been around a lot of these discussions in the legislature over a whole variety of issues. Let's talk first of all about the sort of reform sentiment that we've seen out there in the course of the last year. There's been discussions about reducing the size of the legislature, about term limits, about whether the legislature should be more open and transparent. What is your sense about, as we move forward into 2007, whether any of that is likely to occur?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of discussion, a lot of posturing on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the reducing the size of the legislature, which is a very popular concept, I mean, it's reapportionment in a different fashion.
Right.
And so, you know, in particular, I think Democrats look at that as a difficult thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
The transparency of the legislature, I think inroads can be made there. I don't believe that there needs to be quite as much secrecy in the process and stuff like that.
Well, let me go. I mean, look, I can understand why, okay, you don't reduce the size, you may not want term limits, they take constitutional amendments and they're controversial, but your point is well taken. What is wrong with not voting bills in the middle of the night? What is wrong with taking a period of time before you put them up for a roll call vote in either chamber, of making sure there's a waiting period so that the press and the public, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the only, you know, after 16 years and I've watched the process, you know, when times were good in Pennsylvania, like in the middle 90s when Governor Ridge was the governor, and, you know, the budget process was very quick.
Yeah.
If you'll remember, I mean, we were voting, we voted them in April, we voted them in May, because the decisions, I mean, it was you know, Republican House, Republican Senate, and Republican Governor, and they were able to do things in a much quicker fashion.
Yeah.
Now, you know, there's some really dicey issues in the budget, you know, like with the gaming issue, things of that.
Sure.
It was a lot more difficult to get things done, and what happens in the process is, and I don't know what it's like in a faculty at a college when they have to try to get a vote together on electing a dean or something, whatever the process is. But there has to be a sense of pressure and urgency on tough issues,
or it doesn't get done.
And it doesn't, or it doesn't get done. And
let me go to one other issue here. A lot of folks, even the governor, has said that he thinks it's time to have a constitutional convention. As you know, the last one occurred in the late 1960s, 4 or 5 articles of the Constitution, but no general look at state government since 1873. Does the Economy League have a position on that?
Well, I mean, the Economy League played a very instrumental role in the 1960s. Matter of fact, the process leading up to that convention started in about 1958 or 1959, and the Economy League was one of the primary instruments used to get to the actual convention.
Right.
And once the convention occurred, the Economy League was the chief resource for reference work, for bill writing, and things of that nature. The Economy League would love to participate in a process like that. There are issues that are very important to us. And I listened to you moments ago talking about the league. You know, local governance is an extremely important issue, one that we are going to focus on for the next year to 18 months. We realize this is a great opportunity.
Let's talk about local government. One of the criticisms of Pennsylvania government is there are too many local municipalities, a couple thousand, too much fragmentation in government, and that leads to ineffectiveness. And is there a process that you would like to see that would deal with this, what's called local government fragmentation?
Well, you know, it's interesting. We've done polling over the years, and the polling kind of by regions, and you know this better than anybody. I mean, Pennsylvania doesn't have, you know, Carvel used to talk about there being 3 regions in Pennsylvania. There are more than that.
Sure.
And when you do polling and you do the issue of local governance, every region had a different response. And, you know, where, you know, you live in Lancaster, I live in York, the people in those areas love their local governments.
Sure.
They're not going to jump on a bandwagon and say, let's merge nine municipalities into one. But where the Economy League's really focusing now is we think that there is functions that can be aligned together and that will create efficiencies.
Right.
You know, whether it is healthcare, whether it's pension funds. I mean, Pennsylvania, what's the statistic? Pennsylvania has more pension funds than every other state east of the Mississippi. I mean, it's a stunning statistic. We think we can do work that would make those more efficient.
But do you think that what ought to happen is that there ought to be a commission, that there ought to be that it's time has come now to take a comprehensive look at all of this?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the Economy League's done a couple of studies. One we're going to release probably late January, early February. I think one of the recommendations coming out of that report will be to have the governor establish a commission, a special commission on local government. I mean, it's time for us to revisit that. And there are economies of scale that can be put in place without going through the disruption of merging municipalities.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Steve, I want to talk a little bit about transportation issues. As you know, there's, Pennsylvania has a serious problem with roads and bridges and how to deal with
mass transit.
Mass transit as part of the overall highway situation. We'll talk about that with my guest, Steve Stetler, when we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Builders Association, building today for a better tomorrow, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program with Steve Stetler, the new Executive Director of the Capital Region of the Pennsylvania Economy League, a former member of the House of Representatives, 16 years. Representative Stetler served in the House. Steve, let's go to another subject. I think three things Governor Rendell has said that he wants to work on in this new term. One is health care. One has to do with energy-related economic aspects. And the third one is this whole business of mass transit and the highway situation. As you know, there's been a big debate over how it gets funded. You spent many years in the House wrestling with that question. First of all, tell our listeners, what in general is the problem with both mass transit and the highways, roads and bridges? I mean, besides they need more money.
Well, the solution's always more money, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there is a structural problem in the way we fund both of the systems. I mean, the highway system, is primarily funded with user taxes, and the Constitution requires that gas taxes, revenues raised from that, must be used for highways and bridges. We have in place some tax systems that have no elasticity. They don't grow when the price of gas goes up. That doesn't always result in more revenues. So the highway, as the cost of inflation and the cost of repairing and building new highways goes forward, and bridges, we can't keep up here in Pennsylvania. And
we have an unusually large number of state-maintained roads. It's the largest in the country, or one of them?
It's one of the largest.
Right.
Certainly, the Economy League did a study this past year in conjunction with 6 organizations, the Contractors Association, 10,000 Friends. It was a great combination of people, organizations coming together, realizing that both mass transit and the highway system have to be dealt with. And the problems have to be solved. And traditionally in Pennsylvania, you never solve one without the other one being involved. There was a huge shortfall. There's no targeted monies really to maintain mass transit going forward. We need to...
and as you know, that's going to be pretty controversial. I mean, absolutely. You get into this business about, the workers and salaries and unions and some of the mass transit operations, and then they compete, in particular with rural areas where there's maybe a more pressing need to deal with roads and bridges. So not only do you have the problems of competing interests, but you've got all of these other ancillary considerations that will come into play.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of politics involved with this because, I think most people think of mass transit as just a Southeast issue.
Right.
And primarily it is. But there are transit systems all over Pennsylvania that need assistance, whether it's York, Lancaster, Allegheny County. I mean, all of those need assistance, and we need to have a steady revenue stream to support them.
Do you think this revenue stream needs to be a state revenue stream, or, the Governor's Commission made its recommendations to increase a whole bunch of fees in the gasoline tax, 12.5% gasoline tax hike, which I think everybody in the legislature said, well, maybe not today. And as you know, no one's run to embrace that too quickly.
No. I mean, now, one of the recommendations was to study, P3, which is private-public partnerships, and everybody's looking at the turnpike thinking, we can lease this, we can do all kinds of, and I think it's something worthy of studying.
Sure.
In the study we did, we recommended that private-public partnerships be an instrumental part of the solution. We also recommended that the Commonwealth look at regions, and that there are natural regions in Pennsylvania, and in those regions, transportation takes on different pictures. And in the Southeast, it's mass transit.
Right.
I mean, if you were to if you were to maintain state funding to contribute both mass transit and roads, and in the Southeast allow them to form a region, give them the authority to maybe, I don't know, raise taxes, whatever, to raise revenues, they would be able to deal with their issue in a constructive fashion. And the argument, I don't want to raise taxes because it's all going to Philadelphia. I don't want, it would be raised in the region, stay in the region. So I mean
So you think the Governor's Commission and all these is a good starting point? You think that's probably what will be the starting point, but...
Well, let's put it this way. It's got people talking.
Yeah.
And it's, the unfortunate thing with, it's a huge report. What as is usual with the media, they focus on, they go to, what's the thing that juices people up, and they go right to taxes.
Gas tax,
they don't talk about
licenses and
registration. They don't talk about the issue of why.
Yeah.
What's the structural problem? What needs to be addressed? And that's kind of lost in the noise of the taxes. And so, hopefully, it's a good starting point. I'm hopeful that the transportation committees.
We'll take it up. All right. Well, look. Thanks for coming on. You'll come back in the course of the next year. I hope we'll get into some of these in specific as they make their turn in the legislature. Well, thanks for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We'll see you next week, and stay well.